in terms of the discussion questions, we'd like to move ahead, and of course, all the panelists have the opportunity to comment, and all of you have an opportunity to jump right in. And in order to kickstart that, we're going to put up the first discussion question for part 2, and I'm going to preface that with a bit of something as well. So Colleen and Lauren are going to have roving microphones. And one of the themes that seems to go through not only this panel, but the first one, and I presume we'll hear similar, is symptom and sign patterns. In other words, are there things that tend to be consistent from the time of onset of disease? Are there things that are declining? And how might we be able to look at or measure those changes? So that's one thing to think about for potential discussion. We did not explicitly ask that. The question we'd like you to respond to here now: how much do the treatments that you have, understanding that there's an entire spectrum, how does that impact quality of life, activities of daily living? So we see a little variability, and those on the webinar are certainly welcome to cast their votes as well. And what we would see overall is a very interesting 90% showing moderate or a lot of effect. So beyond just the specter of hope, but concrete perception of improvements is key. So that leads to some thoughts about the prelude commentary. What kinds of things do you see have been stable? What do you see that had been declining that's improving? And what are some of those measures that you think of? Can you put kind of weighting on that to be able to help how people develop measures, outcomes, and so forth in development of new treatments? So who's going to be the first brave volunteer? We have a little bag of coins. Oh, they're on all your tables. Yes, Rebecca, we'll get you that microphone. And it's thrilling to see a full room, even though it creates a navigational issue.
Hi, it's Rebecca again. Jonathan's been on a treatment for 5 years now this month. And I have to say that I truly, truly believe he is doing as well as he is doing because we have this treatment and because of all the hard work. And it's just amazing. Like, there's sacrifices with it, and we had to fly to Maryland every 3 weeks for 2 years with a little baby and everything. And it's worth every second. So we're beyond grateful, and we truly believe that, it's helping our child.
So Rebecca, before you give up the mic, what are some of those particular observations? You see things getting better. Is there something you can either kind of calibrate for us?
We were pretty lucky. Jonathan didn't have a lot of symptoms when he started, and he still doesn't. So it's kind of, for us, it's more that it's kept the disease away, and it's slowed progression because he, should be a lot more progressed, and he has very little progression, and that's our biggest issue. Thing. Also, he had a little difficult swallowing when he first started the study. Not too bad, just a little slow, and now he has no difficulties with that at all. So there's little things that definitely have improved, but mainly it's just there's been very little regression or progression.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Very good. And comments from others? Yes, Gail, can you?
Hi. I've noticed we were on the trial because of my daughter Haley, but we found out about my son, and he is going to college, driving, and everything. I don't see hardly any signs in him. And for my daughter Haley, I didn't think she was going to graduate high school, and now she's in her second year of alternative schooling and stuff, and hanging in there with us. Strong Cookie still see the light in her eyes and everything. So it's made the world of difference for us.
Thank you. Yeah. So Lauren, Kayla has a comment here. And we've gotten to know a lot of these folks through the preparatory discussion, so my memory's not that good.
My name is Kayla. Cameron is my daughter. And I want to elaborate on something I've heard a few parents say, the light coming back into their eyes, because I know what that means. You can almost see that, like when they talk to you or they try to look at you, they are not the same. But after Cameron had treatments, it was like she is able to come back to us. And her personality had kind of faded, and that's come back. She has less cataplexy. Her gait and walking abilities are better. She has more speech. And every day is different. Every moment's different. There are ups and downs. But I put that you can see it in her eyes. Sometimes moments and times may be rough, but she's able to come back to us right now with treatments. Her tremor is better. Her drooling and feeding are also better. And swallowing.
That's a great illustration of things that you saw that were declining that then appeared to be improving. And so that's helpful when you talk about what seems to reverse. And we also have another person in the back here where we need, Colleen, an additional microphone. Yes.
Hi, Jay Hansinger, my wife Donna. My son JP Hansinger was diagnosed at 11. He's now 16. And the treatments we do, IV and IT, I won't say what drug it is, but he's definitely improved. He's very talkative. He's declined in a couple areas, but overall, I would imagine on the NPC scale, he's stable over the last 5-6 years. I'm not happy with that. I want him better. And there's a couple of serious areas where he's declining. And swallowing is a big issue, silent aspiration. We talked to his doctor about his end-of-life treatment and plan, and the outlook is still not good. So we need things now. And I look at how slow things move, and it's very frustrating. And anytime I turn on the TV and I see an ad for smoking and why it's bad for you, it infuriates me because we allow smoking and then we treat the people, and there's a limited pool of monies to take care of illness. And all that money, that's self-inflicted. And while I have good friends that have died from cancer, from smoking-related cancers, I feel sorry for him, but my son did not pick what he has. I'm also a volunteer fireman, and a lot of the fire people are getting cancer. That's not their fault. It's just a fact of the job. So they need to be treated. But I have to do fundraisers, which are called friend-raisers, and I don't like doing them. It's begging for money for research. And everything that we do is expensive. And the amount of bureaucracy that's out there to get a drug approved, when you come to a rare disease, who's going to get a return on investment? So it's beyond maddening for me. And I would just like to see the FDA, who's come around 100%, work more with the drug companies, the pharmaceutical companies, to push these drugs through. We need to take a higher level of risk with the drugs. There was a big concern over the last few years about hearing loss. It's like, these children are dying. Does really losing your hearing make a difference? Of course, it would be terrible for my son not to hear me say I love him, but I'd still be able to hold him alive. And I'm willing to take chances. There are other drugs out there. We have a right to try law, but we can't try. I'm told some of the pharmaceutical companies won't do compassionate use. We're lucky that where we are now, we're getting some, but there are other companies that won't do it. They just want the money. So we need the drugs now, not in a year or two.
I appreciate the frustration. Appreciate the comments, Jay, and I'd like to highlight a couple things you raised, because I think it goes back to panel one when you talk about the swallowing. and swallowing issues and can lead to aspiration, and aspiration can lead to pneumonia. So how do we disrupt that kind of very negative cascade of dominoes? I think that's important to keep. And also, how do we better measure some of that so that we understand how things are or are not being reversed? And she had comments first, and then you, Mr.
I've just spoke before. My son is 22. Anyways, I also want to address the fear response that I go through every 2 weeks. Gabriel gets better. I know he gets better. His gait is better. His train of thought, he can follow thoughts. He can speak better. But a couple days before we go back for infusions, I can start to see him decline. And it's a fear response to think that maybe one day or maybe it wouldn't be there. How long would the decline? Would it be a week, 2 weeks? You know? So I also wanted to say something about that too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Doug. Son, Samantha's my daughter. She's been having treatment, as she said, for almost 5 years. I would say before she had treatment, she was very quiet. One-word answers, not much came out. When Samantha was young, 5 years old, consider her a chatterbox. Couldn't stop her from talking. Probably within 3 months after treatment, Samantha was coming back. She's back to being a chatterbox. And sometimes even today, I just have to leave the room because she's nonstop talking. So for me, how the treatments are, I see a lot of Samantha coming back into our world and how those treatments affect us as a family. We're able to live a little bit more of a normal life of a family. So for that, I appreciate everybody being here today and the FDA especially for listening to everybody's voice. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And Deanna back here has a question. And then we're going to move on to the second question, which kind of complements that. Please.
Hi, my name's Deanna, and my son is Osama. He's almost 3, and I just wanted to make a comment. We started treatment over a year ago, and before we started treatment, he was barely able to walk, a few minutes at a time on a walker, and we've been doing treatment for over a year, and we took him to the zoo yesterday. He literally ran around for over an hour checking out the animals and trying to make new friends, and we've just seen tremendous changes in him since we've started the treatment. That's all I wanted to say.
Very good. Thank you. So motion and mobility and those kind of things that had been declining, you see moving ahead. And so ways to measure that would be key. Pam, I'll call on you first after we put up the next question, if that's okay. So question 2, to give everybody a chance, and we're not going to truncate the discussion. We want to continue that one. When considering whether to receive a treatment, what considerations are the greatest influence? Everything's a trade-off in life. How do you look at benefit and risk? Is the chance of a rare but serious side effect pushing you away? Or the chance of common but less serious side effects a concern? What? And as you see, how often, how frequent, the physical burden. Very interesting. So, pardon? Right. Oh, I beg your pardon. Well, you may choose up to 3 elements. And can the folks on the webinar see this as well? So that, okay, very good. Just thinking about kind of that risk-benefit teeter-totter, that the things that are of concern, rare but serious side effects. And, you know, we've seen this in other rare disorders where there's a trade-off and that can be further looked at in terms of preference studies, where they actually go to patients and parents and talk about the absolute trade-offs. So that's very interesting, and obviously each category appears to have some levels of concern, understanding you get 3 votes. So let's talk a little more about these. What are some of those considerations embedded in the concerns about side effects? Pam, can I go to you first, or is this on track with what you were going to talk about? And if not, go ahead and speak what you were going to.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to highlight for us when we were diagnosed, my older daughter, who is 9 today, was 8 days shy of turning 6 and really on the verge of going through her first neurological decline. And when we began treatment, it took a little while, but we did see a huge stabilization, and that was a huge relief. She was choking on food. She was very ataxic and falling all the time. And she had sleep disturbances. She had cognitive issues and was, drooling and had a lot of trouble swallowing. And all of those things, with the exception of her ambulation, because she's gone through such a growth spurt in the last 3 years, the rest of the things have all actually gotten better, and her ambulation has stabilized. She's still in school. She's not keeping up with her peers at all. She's definitely behind her peers, but she's loved by her peers, and she's really very engaging and great to be around, and that's so hopeful for us. And then our youngest daughter, we're having to make decisions for our youngest daughter that we never even faced with our older daughter, because we didn't think about kindergarten for our younger daughter. We didn't think about where is she going to go to school and learn to read. We were trying to figure out what was going on and why she was losing abilities. So suddenly with Abby, she has no symptoms, and the fact, who knows if it's for sure the medicine, but she's been on the medicine that she's taking, 2 medicines actually, for 38 of her 58 months of life. And she has really no symptoms. She is very mainstreamed in all of her activities and ahead of her peers in some of her activities. So I just hope that we can see more of that, and appreciate everything today. Thanks.
Thank you. And to summarize a couple of those comments, the reversal in swallowing issues and falls tended to be the most dramatic from your experience. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Mary.
Kind of like what I said in my statement.
You might need to punch your, oh, it's on.
It's
Thank
on.
you.
Okay. A little bit different perspective from my end. We was just barely able to get on the trial because she was so progressed. We were at that point where we kind of barely got her there. She has progressed well on the treatment, but yet we still continue. And like someone has said, because of that light in her eyes, I do see that light in her eyes right after the treatment. If I'm going to hear any words, I'm going to hear it 2 or 3 days after treatment. I'm going to have a smile. She's going to help me stand up to transfer her. That's kind of why we keep going. She's still progressing, because I think the delay in treatment was part of the cause. I guess that's it.
Okay. Were there any particular things that were most frustrating about seeing ongoing decline?
Just the seizures. It happened so very, very rapidly as far as the decline. She was, like I said, going up and down her stairs, and seizures started, and it was overnight just about. We had, and then we stabilized and got on the trial. It's still worth it, but it's still.
So the seizures were the most
Oh,
remarkable change,
Oh,
almost
yes.
like a light switch.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Let Colleen get you.
My daughter Haley still has between 3 to 8 seizures a day, but that does not deter us because sometimes it just energizes us. But we're still working on the seizure part of it. But and we just had to move to a ranch-style house because of the seizure. So she's working to get better, and we're working to make things better for her. So all of this is giving us hope.
Thank you. Yes, Debbie.
I'm coming at it for a slightly different perspective again because of the age Rachel was when she was diagnosed and then when treatment started. Another thing that I would have put up there is the amount of damage that had been done already and what we were going to gain. You know, some people, children who are younger seem to gain a lot back. We didn't think we were going to get that much back, and the light in Rachel's eyes was there till the end. There's a picture of her right outside, and the light is there. So we had to balance it between the programs, the day programs that she loved to go to, and then missing that, the number of times we'd have to fly and go through everything else. And we chose not to do any treatment, and you know, we were lucky. She was still helping us transfer. She was still talking as clear as day. And then in the last month, everything just, all at once, it just all started happening. But I think some people don't do any treatment because you have to weigh the pros and cons with what it's going to give back versus what you lose day to day. And it depends on where you are in that stage.
Thank you. And I think you highlight a key point that everybody's probably thinking about: reversibility. Where's that potential to reverse loss, and where might we be able to see that, and how do we measure it and look across patient groups so that we can understand where the advantages are?
Hi, I'm Chris Hempel. I have twins with NPC. They just turned 15 this year, which I think is just amazing. We're on combination treatment, and we've done 220 lumbar punctures, 500 intravenous treatments. We're also on another drug that's an experimental medication. I think one of the things is that a lot of families face is cost of care. I mean, one of the drugs we're on to date has cost $2.5 million just for one drug. Seizure drugs alone are running $10,000 a month each for each twin. My twins require 24/7 care. You know, we have 10 different nannies on different shifts to take care of them, and this is all out-of-pocket costs. So I know a lot of families in here have tremendous financial burdens to take care of their kids and leave their jobs and so forth. There's no question to me that after 10 years of these treatments that, you know, my twins I know would not be here today without these treatments. It's just clear to me. We know we've had different effects based on what we've done. At one point, the twins' lungs were filled with massive xanthomas, and we've done bronchoscopies to look at this, and you know, 2 years later after IV therapy, those have cleared up. I noticed things on mucus and swallowing, you know, where we've changed things up with the IV therapy, where I noticed improvements in those areas. And then for IT therapy, I think we saw a great improvement in hearing for whatever reason. I know there's been a lot of problems with hearing with kids, but the twins were almost deaf, and you know, we have 10 years of data that shows that their hearing, you know, improved, and it's just stayed stable for 10 years. I mean, it's amazing. And that's about all I wanted to say. I think we've got to continue to focus on, you know, combination therapy. This is not, anyone therapy is not going to be a magic bullet. And I hope as a community we can come together to get some of these drugs across the finish line and focus on things like personalized medicine, because these mutations are so unique, and one size may not fit all. And then, of course, you know, try to focus on things like regenerative medicine. And those are the things that I'm trying to look into, is we've had these losses, and how could we move forward with some things like that.
Thank you very much. And obviously, we're looking to regenerative medicine and things like that as a future, hopefully, add-on to all the new other things that may be discovered and developed and approved. Perhaps we can move on to question 3 then, and it complements this particular one, but gives you a chance to respond. So when considering a potential new treatment, what's the benefit that really matters? What's that impact factor? Longer lifespan, fewer physical symptoms, fewer neurosymptoms, Or none of the above, something new and different that we don't have up there that you can comment on. Interesting. And you only get one choice here. Huh. All of the above for many, I'm sure. And this is an important question when you talk about benefit and risk, and is it only survival, or is it survival with a different kind of quality of life? These are difficult questions that companies, regulators, others, and you all at home worry about. So the opportunity to stop or perhaps even reverse neurological symptoms seems to be the predominant preference, at least at this point. But I realize it's hard to just take this and draw conclusions. So let's hear what you're thinking about relative to these points or anything else that may be of significance to you. Brave souls? Perhaps some of you on the panel. Because I know you don't want to be listening to me.
I guess my thought would be, it depends on what stage they are in the disease.
Right.
I mean, it just depends on where you are. At my point, I mean, I'm far different from where his point is. It's
Understood. And Alex, you were going to say something?
I was going to say the same thing as a preface, but after that, I would say that for me, that sort of inimicable light in the eyes, if somebody could tell me, you know what, he's going to be in a wheelchair, he won't ever be able to walk, but he'll be able to speak to you clearly and understand you and look you back in the eye and have him there as an interlocutor, that would be much more important to me than walking. Other than that, I'd say, yeah, the neurological decay, and, you know, theoretically, somebody finds a way to stop it.
Indeed. Pam and then Sarah.
I think for me right now, I have one daughter with symptoms, and what is the most meaningful to us right now with her is the swallowing. Every day I think we live in fear of pneumonias. We hear about them from other members in the community, and we talk to our friends in the community who've lost their loved ones due to pneumonia. So we are constantly living in fear of choking from not only eating the food, but also just choking on saliva at night when she's sleeping. So we've seen the swallowing get so much better on the medicine that it is one of the biggest things that we really, are interested in making sure we keep. So thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
Just from our perspective of receiving early intervention and considering the symptoms that our daughter has right now, something my husband and I talk about is when she was diagnosed, she had delays in cognition, language, fine and gross motor, some of them larger delays than others. And what we talk about a lot is that we feel so grateful that the areas that have come at normal or very close to normal are her language and cognition, because we feel like those are the areas that would allow her to form meaningful relationships with other people and friendships. And we believe, even though she could have mobility issues forever, if she could hold on to her language and her cognition, she would have the most fulfillment from her life. Not to say it wouldn't be without challenges, but those are the areas that we feel really grateful to see the most improvement in.
Thank you. Yes, in the back, is that Rebecca, I think? I can't see from.
When I first read this, I picked fewer neurological symptoms. But as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I think that's important, but we also have to, once we find fewer neurological symptoms, what about the other organs now? What about the other organs that they need to survive? So I worry about that as well, like the liver and, if his liver is constantly regenerating because of the fat or the cholesterol, what's going to happen to that in the future? Yes, I'm worried about neurological, but I also don't want him to get cancer or get something and his life end because of that. So kind of changed my mind a little bit while I was sitting here.
Yeah, the trade-offs are not easy. Chris, you had a comment.
Yeah, when I have a hard time with this question, just picking one, because what I want is 3 drugs that do each one of those, and I want to be able to get those through the process and into my children and approved as fast as possible. So which one do I want? I want all of them, right? I want all of them to, and that's kind of the whole point of the cocktail approach, right? Is that I can't pick just one of those. I want to find that combination. And that's what keeps me up at night. So I have a very hard time answering this question.
That's a very fair comment, and there's no reason we shouldn't ask for more than just one. And sometimes there are breakthroughs that impact more than one. I've certainly seen that in selected diseases, so not a promise, but a hope. Other thoughts and comments? And I think that was our last question here. Several themes came out of this that I think were really important, so I'm going to capture that. And these are the kind of things that will go into a wrap-up or a summary of all these things. And the reversibility factor was particularly compelling. If there was some way we knew the natural history in every given patient, we had biomarkers or some other way to measure, we'd kind of have a yardstick to work against. So I think all of you contributing to the kind of data capture that helps define that will be very important to ongoing progress. And Amy, I was going to ask you a question because I was very struck by the description you gave of John Michael's response with your father. Are those the kind of things that you see? Has it been sustaining? And is there some way that you, being a healthcare professional, could measure that in a different way?
Yeah, so one thing I was thinking, when John would get sick more frequently, be in the hospital more frequently before treatment, he always would say to me, if I had my choice between life and death, I choose death, because he wasn't living. He wasn't able to live and talk and communicate and do those things. And now, since treatment, he's not once said that to me. And he's happy and he's able to communicate and he can talk to my parents. And he has good days and bad days, and sometimes he's quieter than others, but he ate his first McDonald's cheeseburger for the first time in 4 years. So you want to see him smile, give him some food, that was his thing. That's what he loves, chocolate cake. And I told him, there's no way I'm not ever going to make sure you have chocolate cake on your birthday. It's very important. And I measure it all the time. He hasn't been in a wheelchair in a year, and we took him to Disney last year and he walked 10,000 steps in the first day with me. And that was unbelievable. I truly believe that he's my living miracle. He just is. He's my hero.
So hearing from a number of you, the kind of things with reversal with cognition, with swallowing, are very important, not falling as much. All those things are probably fairly measurable and would be very important for us to capture in an ongoing type assessment of current treatments and new. Any additional? Kayla?
I just want to point out something that happened at one of Cameron's evaluations. So one of the things was that she needed to be able to walk, or they wanted to assess her walking a straight line. And at 4, she could not focus on walking in a straight line, nor could she walk it. And so she would stagger and then walk away. And this past year, at 7, she turned sideways on the line, and she took her steps sideways. But on the evaluation paper, they had to write that she could not walk the straight line forward. But in that, you can look and see that she has problem-solving skills that she did not have before. Her memory had improved because she was able, and attention to task, she was able to stay focus on what she was supposed to be doing for a short period of time. And so those things I feel like need to be considered when we are evaluating patients.
Thank you. So different ways to really be able to quantitate new lateral as well as forward motion. Very good. Oh, Lauren. Oh, sorry, Colleen has, and go ahead, Alex. What you
Just
talk?
something quickly. There's something that's objective, such as, hey, what's the number of falls that he had last week compared to this week? That's something you could easily quantify, and I would say that's clearly a great improvement for us. Last year, he probably averaged, 1 or 2 falls every month. This past year, there's been 1 fall during the whole year, and mostly because he got new shoes. He wasn't used to the sole, the way it was taking on traction. But there's something that's more subtle. For example, before the trial drug, I used to have this constant apprehension when he's walking with me. Is he okay? You're constantly looking there. If he's a step behind me, I'm constantly looking out of my peripheral vision. Is he about to fall? In the last year and a half, I just never felt that way. And that's something you can quantify, but it's a feeling, kind of like, with the look in their eyes. When you feel that they have a surety of foot that they didn't have before, that you're not constantly worrying, looking back, is he walking stably or not? That's something that we've benefited from and something that's hard to quantify on a piece of paper.
Thank you. Yes.
My name's Karen Quant, and my son is Ty, and he was 19 when he started in the trial. He was advanced in the disease, and we weren't sure what the medicine would do for him. So 6 months into the trial, he was doing the 9-hole peg test, where you have to put the pegs in each 9 holes with each hand, left and right. At the beginning of the trial, he couldn't do it at all. He could not get those pegs in the spots. At 6 months, he did 9 pegs, both hands, left and right. He could do it. I was blown away by that. That was something I could actually see a huge difference with his fine motor skills. I also have a video of him. He couldn't walk on his own. We helped him. He could walk with assistance, but not on his own. And he could not get off the couch and stand up and walk. After a year, it was over a year of treatment with the medicine, he was able to get off the couch on his own, stand up, and walk. And he couldn't do that for years. That's a huge difference in what he was doing. He didn't like things on his skin. It bothered him, like light touch and like little wristbands or something bothered him. When they had to put his patient wristband on at the hospital, it was like he couldn't stand it. We had to put it on his ankle because he couldn't stand it on his sock. After about 6 months of the treatment, sure, put the wristband on, I don't care. It didn't bother him anymore. He'd put the wristband on. He shopped for rings in the store at Rush University. It's like, oh, there's rings. And he was wearing rings. I mean, he didn't like things on his hands. Oh, yes, I want a ring. I mean, he could tolerate things on his skin. It was like, oh, this feels better. He could tolerate haircuts. He couldn't stand haircuts because it drove him crazy for them to cut his hair. And it's like, oh, you want to go for a haircut? Yes. And it was fine. He didn't have any problems. He didn't give him any trouble. He got a haircut. It was fine. It made a difference. And he was late stage. I mean, he was late advanced in the disease. It did make a difference.
Thank you. And I think you pointed out an important aspect of manual dexterity, and perhaps that's one of those things that might be able to, over time, be assessed in different ways in addition. Thank you.